Excuse me, are you lost? This store isn't for loitering. Jasmine looked up, startled but composed. She paused for a moment. The weight of those words hit her like a sudden gust of wind. She blinked, unsure if she'd heard correctly. Then, as clarity set in, she replied, her voice steady. I'm not loitering. I'm shopping. Karen's smirk deepened, her tone dripping with disbelief. Shopping? Sure you are. The words hung in the air, heavy and deliberate, loud enough for others in the store to hear. What would you do if someone judged you for simply existing in a space you had every right to be in? Click the subscribe button if you believe one should never be judged wrongly because of how they look. Only those who judge others because of how they look won't subscribe to the channel. Jasmine thought her day at the boutique would be about finding a thoughtful gift for her mother. Instead, it was about to become a confrontation she never expected. What unfolded next left everyone in the boutique stunned and became a story that would echo far beyond the store. Stay tuned as we uncover the full account of courage, resilience, and justice well deserved. Jasmine stood in the middle of the luxurious boutique, her fingers lightly brushing over the edge of a sleek handbag on display. The soft hum of music played in the background, mingling with the quiet murmurs of other shoppers. Everything about Jasmine, her posture, her thoughtful expression, spoke of someone who belonged. Yet to one woman in the store, she didn't. It all started when Jasmine entered the store, a casual glance in her direction from across the room. But then came the sharp sound of heels clicking purposefully against the polished floor. A white woman, Karen, dressed in an expensive blazer, stopped just a few feet away. Her gaze, cold and assessing, lingered on Jasmine a moment too long. "Can I help you with something?" Karen asked, her tone carrying an edge that suggested anything but genuine concern. Jasmine looked up, startled at first, then composed. "No, thank you." But Karen didn't move. Instead, she folded her arms, tilting her head with a thin, forced smile. "Browsing? Interesting. It's just, we don't usually see, younger shoppers looking at items like these." Jasmine blinked, her hand still resting on the handbag. "I'm here looking for a gift for my mom." Karen's smile vanished, replaced by a smirk. She let out a dry laugh, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "A gift, huh? Well, these aren't exactly, let's say, budget-friendly." Jasmine's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker in her eyes, a hint of frustration held in check. She started to respond, but Karen cut her off. "Listen," Karen continued, her voice growing louder. "I don't know what kind of place you're used to shopping in, but this isn't the kind of store where you just walk in and touch everything." A few heads turned, customers glancing over their shoulders. Jasmine noticed, but she stayed calm, her hand dropping back to her side. "I'm sorry if I've made you uncomfortable," Jasmine said evenly. "I didn't mean any harm." But Karen wasn't finished. She stepped closer, her voice lowering, as if sharing a secret, but loud enough to ensure others could hear. "It's not about harm, sweetheart. It's about making sure this place stays exclusive." Jasmine felt her chest tighten, but she refused to show it. She glanced around the store. The sales associates were watching, their expressions unreadable. Some customers were pretending not to notice. Others looked on with thinly veiled curiosity. "Is there a problem?" Jasmine asked, her voice steady. Karen raised an eyebrow. "A problem? Well, you tell me. You've been wandering around here for quite some time, and you don't seem to have any intention of actually buying something. It's just a little odd, don't you think?" Jasmine opened her mouth to respond, but once again Karen interrupted. "I mean, if you're lost, I can call someone to help you. Or better yet, maybe you should just try somewhere more your speed." There was a brief silence. Jasmine stared at her, her face still calm, though her hands clenched into fists at her sides. And then, softly but firmly, she replied, "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Have you clicked on the subscribe button yet? Subscribe now to show your support of justice for Jasmine in this story. Karen narrowed her eyes, her smirk growing wider. Well, we'll see about that. Unbeknownst to Karen, Jasmine's calm wasn't born out of fear or uncertainty. It came from something else entirely. She knew something Karen didn't, a fact that would change everything. What Karen didn't realize was that Jasmine wasn't just any shopper, and she wasn't here by accident. She had a connection to this store that would leave everyone, including this arrogant woman, utterly speechless. The tension in the boutique was thick, though Jasmine remained silent, her eyes fixed on the handbag she had been admiring moments before. Karen, now standing just a step closer, raised her voice, not in anger, but in that peculiar tone that demands attention while masking condescension as concern. "I'm sorry, but I just find this whole situation unusual," she began, her gaze darting from Jasmine to the nearest sales associate, as if seeking backup. A young girl wandering around alone, touching all these expensive items. It just doesn't seem right. Jasmine glanced around the store, aware now that several pairs of eyes had turned in her direction. She could feel the weight of their stares pressing against her, heavy and expectant. She took a small breath, willing herself to stay calm. "I told you I'm looking for a gift for my mom," she said, her voice steady but quiet. Karen chuckled, shaking her head as though Jasmine's words were some kind of punchline. "A gift for your mom," she repeated slowly, drawing out each word as if testing them for sincerity. "Well, if that's true, then surely you found something by now. Or are you just looking?" Jasmine opened her mouth to respond, but Karen pressed on, her words coming faster, sharper. "Because, this isn't the kind of store where you just browse. These items are here for serious buyers, not for wasting time." Jasmine's calm began to waver, a flicker of unease crossing her face. She tightened her grip on the small purse she carried, her knuckles whitening, but still, she said nothing. Karen took Jasmine's silence as confirmation. "Exactly what I thought," she said triumphantly, turning to address one of the sales associates. "Excuse me, can we get someone over here? This girl has been wandering around for too long, and I think it's time someone had a word with her." The sales associate, a young woman in a crisp uniform, hesitated, her eyes flicking between Jasmine and Karen. She looked unsure, caught in the middle of a situation she clearly didn't want to handle. "Ma'am, is there a specific issue?" she asked tentatively. "Yes, there is," Karen snapped, gesturing toward Jasmine. "I don't know what she's doing here, but she doesn't look like she's shopping, and frankly, it's making me uncomfortable. Who knows what she might be up to?" Jasmine's cheeks burned, but she refused to let herself look down. Instead, she met Karen's eyes, her own gaze unwavering. "I haven't done anything wrong," she said, her voice firmer now. "I'm just here to shop like everyone else." Karen scoffed, crossing her arms. "Oh, please, do you honestly expect anyone to believe that? Someone like you in a place like this? Come on." The words hung in the air, sharp and cutting. Jasmine felt the heat rising in her chest, but she forced herself to stay composed. She knew what was happening, knew the assumptions being made, but she also knew that losing her temper wouldn't help. A man standing nearby cleared his throat, looking uneasy. A few other customers exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of discomfort and curiosity. No one said a word. Karen, emboldened by the silence, took another step forward, her voice dropping to a tone meant to intimidate. "If you don't have the money to be here, then maybe you should leave before this becomes more embarrassing for you. It's just a suggestion." Jasmine's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "I have every right to be here," she said. "If you believe in standing up for justice, hit that subscribe button now. Let's make sure stories like Jasmine's inspire real change." "Oh, do you?" Karen shot back, her eyebrows raising. "Because to me, it looks like you're just loitering, and maybe even trying to take something you can't afford. Should we check your bag? The room seemed to hold its breath. Jasmine froze, her mind racing. The accusation hung heavy in the air, loud and undeniable. She felt her hands trembling, but clenched them tightly, refusing to let it show. I haven't stolen anything, she said finally, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. You can check my bag if you want, but you won't find anything. Karen smirked, clearly enjoying the power she believed she held. Well, maybe I will. Or maybe we should just call security and let them decide. The sales associate, still standing nearby, shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, I'm not sure that's necessary, she began, but Karen cut her off. It absolutely is, she snapped. We can't just have people wandering in here, touching everything, and making everyone uncomfortable. This is a high-end establishment, not some discount store. Jasmine felt the sting of the words, but she refused to let them see her hurt. She held her head high, her voice calm but firm. I told you, I'm here to shop. I haven't done anything wrong, and you have no right to treat me this way. Karen laughed, a cold, hollow sound. No right? Sweetheart, I have every right. This is my world, not yours. For the first time, Jasmine's calm began to crack. Her voice trembled slightly as she said, You have no idea who I am. Karen raised an eyebrow, a smug grin spreading across her face. Oh, really? And who are you supposed to be? Jasmine hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to say it, to let the truth out. But something held her back. Instead, she stood silently, her gaze steady, waiting. And in that moment, Karen's smirk faltered ever so slightly. But she didn't stop. That's what I thought, she said with a sneer. Nothing but a nobody, trying to play dress-up in a world you don't belong to. The air in the store was heavy now, the tension almost unbearable. And as Jasmine stood there, surrounded by judgment and silence, she knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. Not yet. The weight of the situation hung heavy in the air, pressing down on every corner of the boutique. Jasmine, standing tall despite the unease threatening to engulf her, reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pressed a single button, a calm determination settling over her face as she brought the phone to her ear. Mom, she said softly, her voice steady but firm. I need you to come here. It's important. On the other end, there was no hesitation. A confident, reassuring voice replied, I'm on my way. The call was brief, unnoticed by most in the store, including Karen, who continued her tirade as though nothing had changed. Karen stood with her arms crossed, her tone laced with arrogance as she muttered something about teaching lessons and people knowing their place. Minutes passed, but they felt like hours. Jasmine remained still, her eyes fixed on the entrance of the store, her composure never wavering. And then, just as Karen's voice reached its loudest peak, the doors swung open. Olivia entered the boutique with the kind of presence that turned heads effortlessly. Dressed in a tailored suit that exuded confidence and elegance, her every step was measured, purposeful. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried an intensity that commanded attention. Karen noticed her almost immediately. For a moment, she hesitated, her words faltering as she glanced at Olivia. But the hesitation didn't last long. Assuming Olivia was just another customer, Karen plastered on a saccharine smile and stepped forward. Finally, someone who can see reason, Karen said, gesturing toward Jasmine with a dismissive wave of her hand. It's about time someone addressed this situation. People like her don't belong in places like this. Olivia didn't respond immediately. She let Karen's words hang in the air, her gaze moving slowly from the woman to the sales staff and then to her daughter. Jasmine stepped forward, her composure intact as she met her mother's eyes. Without a word, she walked over and embraced her. The room fell silent. Karen blinked, confusion flickering across her face as she looked between Jasmine and Olivia. Wait, Karen stammered, her voice losing its confident edge. You know her? Olivia pulled back from the embrace, her expression calm but firm as she turned to face Karen fully. Know her? She repeated, her voice carrying a quiet authority that demanded attention. Yes, I know her. This is my daughter. The color drained from Karen's face. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her eyes darted nervously around the room, searching for support that wasn't there. Olivia continued, her tone steady and measured. And this store, I own it. Every single location in this chain. Now, would you mind explaining what's been happening here? Karen stammered, her usual confidence evaporating under Olivia's unwavering gaze. I didn't realize. I thought. You thought what? Olivia asked, her voice calm but sharp enough to cut through Karen's excuses. That you could judge someone based on your own assumptions? That you could humiliate my daughter in public because of your prejudice? Karen's mouth opened and closed, her words tripping over each other as she struggled to find a defense. I didn't mean. I just thought. You just thought you could treat my daughter as if she didn't belong here, Olivia interrupted, her tone never rising, but her words striking with precision. And why? Because of the color of her skin? Because you assumed she couldn't afford to shop here? Do you understand how harmful that is? How unacceptable? Karen flushed a deep shade of red, her hands fidgeting nervously at her sides. I didn't mean any harm, she muttered weakly, avoiding Olivia's piercing gaze. Harm isn't just in what you intend, Olivia said firmly. It's in the impact of your actions. Your words were designed to belittle, to exclude, and to humiliate. That is harm, whether you acknowledge it or not. The silence in the store was deafening. No one moved. No one spoke. All eyes were on Olivia and Karen, the latter shrinking under the weight of the confrontation. I think, Olivia continued, her voice still calm but unyielding, that you owe my daughter an apology. Karen hesitated, her pride and embarrassment warring on her face. She glanced around the room, looking for an escape that didn't exist. Finally, she cleared her throat and looked at Jasmine, her eyes not quite meeting hers. I'm sorry, Karen said, the words forced and barely audible. Jasmine didn't respond immediately. She stood still, her gaze steady as she looked at Karen, and then quietly she said, You should think about why it took my mother's arrival for you to apologize. The words hung in the air, cutting deeper than any raised voice could have. Karen swallowed hard, her face a mask of discomfort and shame. Olivia stepped forward, her presence commanding. In my store, we treat everyone with respect. I suggest you leave and reflect on your actions. Olivia turned to her staffs, her voice carrying the same authority that had silenced Karen moments ago. I need to address what I've just witnessed here. I am deeply disappointed. The sales associates exchanged nervous glances, their discomfort evident. As employees of this store, my store, you represent my values, Olivia continued. You are here to create a welcoming, inclusive environment for every single customer, without exception. Yet, you stood by and allowed my daughter to be humiliated, allowed this woman's prejudice to go unchecked. Her gaze swept over them, her tone unflinching. Your silence, your hesitation, allowed harm to take root. That is unacceptable. If you see injustice, you address it. If you witness discrimination, you stop it. There is no room for complacency here. Do I make myself clear? The staff nodded hurriedly, murmuring quiet apologies, but Olivia wasn't finished. This isn't just about my daughter, she said. This is about how we treat every person who walks through these doors. If we fail at that, we fail at everything. And I do not tolerate failure. With those final words, she turned back to Jasmine, her resolve unshaken, and the two walked out of the store, leaving behind a silence heavy with the lessons of the moment. Have you ever faced racism or prejudice while shopping? Subscribe to the channel, then share your experience in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from. Injustice should not be tolerated. This story reminds us of the power of standing up against prejudice and the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect. But now it's your turn. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a moment like this? How did it make you feel, and what did you do? We want to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because conversations like these have the power to change minds and inspire action. And if you believe in spreading messages of hope, resilience, and justice, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Join us as we continue to share powerful stories that inspire, educate, and remind us all of what it means to be human. Thank you for watching, and remember, every action we take, big or small, can make a difference.